The cold white walls of Thientam Hospital gleamed under the sterile lights of the end-of-life care unit. Orbiting the planet Gaia, this medical facility specialized in treating terminal illnesses with the most advanced biotechnology available to humankind. Yet even with all their progress, some diseases remained beyond their reach. Elena Bright lay still, her 17-year-old frame barely making an impression on the hospital bed. Her pale skin had taken on an almost translucent quality, the blue veins visible beneath, like rivers on a delicate map. She had been diagnosed with Hong-Tin radiation, in its final stage, a condition that slowly crystallized the blood cells until they could no longer carry oxygen. The disease was rare, but invariably fatal, with survival statistics projected on the wall monitor showing a dismal 0.02% chance of recovery. The rhythmic beeping of life support machines created an artificial heartbeat for the room. Elena's actual heartbeat was irregular, weakening by the day. She stared at the ceiling, counting the tiny perforations in the panels above her bed. This had become her ritual during the 6 months of experimental treatments, all of which had failed. Now, with all options exhausted, only one procedure remained on her schedule. Dr. Harlan stood at the foot of her bed, his white coat impeccably pressed, tablet in hand. His face bore the practiced neutrality of a physician who had delivered terminal news thousands of times. He scrolled through the euthanasia approval documents, one final time confirmation codes glowing green across the screen. Elena's parents had signed all the necessary forms earlier that morning before saying their goodbyes. They couldn't bear to stay for the end. "The procedure is scheduled for 1600 hours. Dr. Harlan stated, his voice as clinical as the room around them. "The artificial intelligence medical overseer will administer the protocol. Do you have any questions before the preparations begin?" Elena shook her head slightly, her auburn hair rustling against the pillow. What questions remained after 6 months of wrestling with her mortality? She had gone through all 5 stages of grief, sometimes cycling through them multiple times in a single day. Now she simply felt numb, floating in a strange limbo between life and what came after. "The AI will begin monitoring your consciousness levels in 15 minutes, Dr. Harlan continued. "Once optimal sedation parameters are established, the transition protocol will commence." He avoided using the word death as per hospital policy. Terms like transition and final relief were preferred in end-of-life situations. The hospital's artificial intelligence chimed in its femininely modulated voice, emanating from hidden speakers. "Patient Elena Bright, Euthanasia Protocol JT7 has been approved. Comfort optimization will begin at 15:45. Your medical journey with us will be honored in our memory banks." Elena closed her eyes. Even the AI's attempts at compassion sounded hollow. She wondered if death itself would feel as sterilized as this room, as procedural as the checklist Dr. Harlan was now completing. "I'll return at 15:40 to oversee the procedure," Dr. Harlan said, tucking the tablet under his arm. He hesitated, something almost human flickering across his features. For a moment, Elena thought he might offer some personal words of comfort. Instead, he straightened his posture and turned toward the door. "Rest comfortably until then." As the door slid shut behind him, Elena was left alone with the machines and their persistent sounds. The air recycling system hummed, pushing the same sanitized oxygen through the room in an endless cycle. Outside her window, the blackness of space stretched beyond the orbital station, punctuated by distant stars that seemed as unreachable as her hopes for survival. She thought about her parents, who had collapsed under the weight of grief these past 6 months. Her father, once vibrant and talkative, had grown silent and hollow. Her mother had aged years in months, her hands constantly trembling when she touched Elena's face. They had exhausted their savings on experimental treatments, mortgaged their home, and even started a fundraising campaign that had raised millions, all to no avail. The money could only buy time, not a cure. Perhaps euthanasia was a mercy, not just for her, but for them too. They could begin healing, rather than watching her crystallize from the inside out. The Hong-Tin radiation had begun affecting her lungs now. Each breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. 15 minutes until comfort optimization, the AI announced. Elena turned her gaze back to the window, watching as Gaia rotated slowly into view, its blue-green surface partially hidden by swirling white clouds. She had never set foot on the planet below, having been born on the terraformed moon colony, where her parents worked as agricultural engineers. She had dreamed of visiting Earth someday, to see the ancient forests and touch real ocean water. Now she would never experience any of it. A sudden tremor shook the room, causing the lights to flicker. Elena's first thought was that the orbital stabilizers had malfunctioned, not uncommon in a station this old. But when a second stronger tremor followed, accompanied by a deep rumbling that seemed to reverberate through the station's skeletal framework, she realized this was something different. The ceiling panels above her bed began to shake dust, and small debris raining down. One of the metal panels broke loose and crashed to the floor, missing her bed by inches. Elena's heart rate spiked, the monitor beside her bed beeping frantically in response. Warning: structural integrity breach detected in Section E Room 407. The AI announced its voice, maintaining the same calm tone despite the emergency. Please remain calm. Security personnel have been dispatched. The wall behind her bed suddenly bulged inward metal, groaning under immense pressure. With a deafening crash, the reinforced window shattered, and the emergency force field immediately activated to prevent decompression. Through this transparent barrier burst a massive dark shape, sending equipment flying across the room. Elena screamed, or tried to. Her weakened lungs produced little more than a hoarse gasp. As alarms blared throughout the station, she found herself face to face with something impossible. A dragon. Its scales were black, with a purple iridescent sheen, glittering like oil on water under the emergency lights that had begun pulsing red throughout the room. The creature was enormous, barely fitting in the spacious medical suite, its long tail whipping against the remains of the wall. Its eyes were the most startling feature, intelligent, glowing with an amber hue, and fixed directly on Elena. The dragon, somehow maintaining its position despite the lack of solid ground beneath its massive clawed feet, moved closer to her bed. Hot breath, smelling of sulfur, and something alien washed over her face. Elena was paralyzed not with fear, as she might have expected, but with awe. After months of staring death in the face, the appearance of a mythological creature seemed almost logical, a hallucination, perhaps her oxygen-deprived brain, creating one final fantastical vision before the end. The door to her room slid open, and Dr. Harlan rushed in, likely responding to the alarms. He froze mid-step, his composed demeanor shattering at the sight before him. The tablet slipped from his hands, clattering to the floor as the dragon swung its massive head toward him. The creature opened its jaws, displaying rows of teeth that gleamed like polished obsidian, and released a deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundation of the station. Dr. Harlan stumbled backward, colliding with the wall behind him. "Impossible!" he whispered, his scientific mind visibly struggling to process the scene. "This cannot be real." The dragon, Draco Elena would later learn, stepped protectively over her bed, positioning its body between her and Dr. Harlan. Steam rose from its nostrils as it lowered its head, eyes never leaving the physician. Dr. Harlan's hand moved slowly toward the emergency protocol button on the wall panel. The dragon's tail lashed out with surprising speed, cracking against the panel and destroying it in a shower of sparks. "The euthanasia procedure will not proceed," rumbled a deep voice, seemingly emanating from the dragon itself. Elena couldn't tell if the words were spoken aloud or somehow projected directly into her mind. "This human will not die today." Dr. Harlan's scientific training battled with the impossible reality before him. "This is a medical facility," he said, his voice straining for authority, despite the tremor running through it. "That patient has been approved for end-of-life transition after all treatment options have been exhausted. You, whatever you are, have no authority here." The dragon's scales rippled, catching the pulsing red emergency lights. "I recognize no authority that mandates death when alternatives exist," it replied. "Your medicine has failed, but there are ways beyond your science." Elena, watching this exchange through half-lidded eyes, noticed something strange happening on her medical monitors. The vital sign displays were flickering, showing unusual patterns in her cellular readings. The AI's voice cut through the tense standoff. "Anomalous biological activity detected in patient Elena Bright. Unknown cellular response occurring at the mitochondrial level. Recalibrating diagnostics." Dr. Harlan glanced at the readings, momentary scientific curiosity overriding his fear. "That's impossible. Her cells are crystallizing. They can't spontaneously regenerate." "Your understanding is limited," the dragon stated, moving its massive head closer to the displays. "The Hongtin radiation affects humans differently. Some die, yes. But rare individuals like Elena carry a potential within their cellular structure, a potential you would have extinguished." The facility's security alert sounded, and the heavy footsteps of the security team echoed from the corridor outside. The dragon's head swung toward the door, a low growl emanating from deep within its chest. "We have no time for further explanations," it said. "Elena must be removed from this facility immediately." Before either Elena or Dr. Harlan could respond, the security team burst through the door, armed with electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to disable rogue medical equipment, or artificial intelligence units gone haywire. They clearly hadn't been briefed on dealing with mythological creatures. "Step away from the patient!" the lead security officer shouted, raising his weapon. The dragon's response was immediate and devastating. It swept its tail in a wide arc, knocking 3 security officers off their feet. As 2 others fired their weapons, the dragon exhaled a stream of purple-tinged flame that melted the electromagnetic pulses mid-air. In the chaos, Dr. Harlan pressed himself against the wall, eyes wide with a combination of terror and fascination. Elena, despite her weakened state, felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her system. For the first time in months, something besides passive acceptance of death stirred within her curiosity, wonder, and a fragile tendril of hope. The dragon turned back to her, its movements surprisingly gentle as it lowered its head to her level. "Elena Bright," it said, its voice softer now, almost tender. "Your life hangs by the thinnest of threads, but that thread is stronger than anyone here realizes. Will you come with me? I cannot promise survival, but I offer a chance, something they would deny you." Elena looked from the dragon to Dr. Harlan, who was shaking his head vehemently. "Don't be foolish, Elena," he urged. This creature is clearly some sort of invasive alien life form. It's dangerous and clearly delusional. The euthanasia protocol is humane, painless." "Painless for whom?" the dragon interrupted. "For her, or for a medical system that has given up? For families who cannot bear to watch suffering? Or for hospital administrators who need the space and resources?" Elena found her voice weak but determined. "Where would you take me?" "To someone who understands what lies within you," the dragon replied. "Someone who has studied the Hongtin radiation for centuries across many worlds." The security team was regrouping in the hallway, calling for reinforcements and heavier weaponry. Time was running out. "I want to live," Elena whispered the words, catching in her throat. After months of preparing for death, admitting this simple truth felt like betrayal of her parents, who had made peace with losing her, of the medical staff, who had tried everything, of her own acceptance of fate. Yet it was true, despite everything she wanted to live. The dragon's eyes seemed to soften. With incredible gentleness, it wrapped its front claws around her, lifting her from the bed. The medical sensors detached, causing alarms to blare, as her vitals flatlined on the monitors. "No," Dr. Harlan shouted, lunging forward, but he was too late. The dragon spread its massive wings, somehow defying the laws of physics within the confines of the hospital room. With one powerful thrust, it launched upward, crashing through what remained of the ceiling. Elena felt the rush of air against her face, saw fragments of the hospital falling away beneath them, heard the shouts and alarms fading into the distance. They soared upward through the layers of the orbital station, the dragon's powerful body smashing through obstacles, as if they were paper. Emergency force fields activated in their wake, preventing catastrophic decompression. Elena should have been terrified, but instead, she felt oddly peaceful, cradled against the warm scales of this impossible creature, watching as they burst through the final barrier into open space. She expected to die instantly in the vacuum, but somehow she continued breathing. A faint shimmer surrounded them both, some kind of force field that the dragon was generating. "Hold tight," the dragon's voice resonated in her mind. "We have a journey ahead of us." Elena watched as the hospital orbital dwindled behind them, becoming just one speck of light among the vast field of stars. Despite her weakness, despite the impossibility of everything happening, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a sense of adventure, of possibility. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be the sterile, scheduled death that had awaited her minutes ago. For better or worse, her story would continue carried forward on the wings of a dragon. Malik Zell's laboratory ship hung in the shadow of Gaia's smallest moon, its camouflage technology rendering it virtually invisible to the orbital station's sensors. The vessel resembled an ancient nautilus shell, spiraling outward from a central hub, its surface covered in what appeared to be scales, similar to those of the dragon now approaching it. Inside the primary laboratory chamber, Malik himself stood before a wall of holographic displays, his elongated fingers dancing through the data streams with practiced precision. He was not human, though humanoid in general appearance. His skin had a bluish-gray tone, his height reaching nearly 7 feet, and his large, pupilless eyes contained swirling galaxies of silver that seemed to reflect the very cosmos themselves. One of the displays flashed an alert, indicating an approaching entity. Malik paused, his work head tilting, as he read the incoming identification signal. "Draco returns," he murmured to himself, his voice melodious and accented with sounds impossible for human vocal cords to produce. And not alone. He moved swiftly to the docking bay, arriving just as a section of the ship's hull reconfigured itself, creating an opening large enough for the dragon to enter. The atmosphere containment field shimmered as Draco passed through it, wings folded close to his massive body front claws, still gently cradling Elena. Malik approached his silver eyes, taking in the girl's condition with a single, sweeping glance. "You found her just in time," he observed, gesturing toward an examination pod that rose from the floor at his mental command. "Place her here quickly." Draco carefully lowered Elena into the pod, which immediately began to glow with a soft blue light. Elena, drifting in and out of consciousness, registered the alien face peering down at her with scientific interest. "Am I hallucinating?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Malik's expression softened into something resembling a smile. "No, child. Though I understand why you might think so. I am Malik Zell, xenobiologist and cellular researcher, and you are Elena Bright, carrier of the most fascinating genetic anomaly I've encountered in 3 centuries of study." Elena's eyes widened slightly. 3 centuries. "My species lives quite a bit longer than yours," Malik explained, his fingers dancing over a control panel that had materialized beside the pod, "which has given me ample time to study the Hongtin radiation across 17 affected worlds." Holographic displays appeared above Elena, showing microscopic views of what she assumed were her own cells. The crystalline formations were clearly visible, spiky red structures invading the healthy cells, gradually turning them into something that resembled ruby shards. "The radiation crystallizes human cells." Malik continued, zooming in on one particular cell cluster. "In 99.98% of cases, this process is irreversible and fatal. But you, Elena Bright, belong to the 0.02%. Elena struggled to focus on his words as wave after wave of pain washed through her. "The hospital said, that's just my survival chances. Not a cure." The hospital sees only what their limited instruments can detect. Draco rumbled, moving to stand beside Malik. They measure the crystallization, the organ failure, the approaching death. They cannot see what lies beneath. Malik nodded, manipulating the holographic display to isolate a single cell. "Look here," he said, expanding the image. "Within the nucleus of certain cells, particularly those in your bone marrow, the crystallization has triggered something remarkable." The display showed a strange, pulsing light within the cell nucleus, a blue-white glow that seemed to be fighting against the red crystalline invasion. "Your body is not just dying, Elena," Malik said, his voice taking on an excited quality. "It is also fighting back in a way I've only theorized was possible. Your specific genetic sequence contains a rare mutation that, when exposed to the Hong-Tin radiation, produces an adaptive immune response. Given time and the right catalysts, these cells could not only resist the crystallization, but reverse it entirely." Elena stared at the display, trying to comprehend what she was being told. "You mean I could recover?" "More than that," Malik replied. "The immune response your cells are developing could be the key to creating a universal cure for the Hong-Tin radiation. Billions of lives across multiple star systems could be saved." "Then why?" Elena began, then winced as pain shot through her chest. "Why was I scheduled for euthanasia today?" Draco made a sound that might have been the dragon equivalent of a scoff. "Because their instruments cannot detect what Malik's can. Because their protocols dictate that once crystallization reaches 80% in vital organs, palliative care transitions to euthanasia. Because it is tidier that way." Malik shot Draco a warning glance before turning back to Elena. "The process your body has initiated is subtle and would be invisible to standard medical sensors. Moreover, without intervention it would progress too slowly to save you. You would indeed die before the adaptive response could take hold." "But you can speed it up," Elena asked, a desperate hope flaring within her. "I believe so," Malik said cautiously. "I have developed a nanite therapy that could accelerate and strengthen your body's natural response. But it is experimental, and not without risks." Elena almost laughed, though it came out as a painful cough. "I was minutes away from being euthanized. What risk could be worse than certain death?" "The nanites could trigger a cytokine storm," Malik explained gently. "Your immune system might overreact, causing more damage than the radiation itself. Or the crystallization could accelerate instead of reverse. There are many possible outcomes, and I cannot predict with certainty which will occur." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. She thought of her parents who had already said their goodbyes, who were probably now sitting in some hospital counseling room, being guided through their grief by an AI therapist. She thought of her friends back on the moon colony, who had sent thousands of messages during her first months of treatment, but whose communications had dwindled as her prognosis worsened. She thought of all the dreams she'd packed away, all the futures she'd mourned. "If it works," she asked, opening her eyes again, "if your treatment works and my cells develop this immune response, how many people could it help?" Malik's galaxy-filled eyes seemed to brighten. "Hong-Tin radiation affects approximately 37 million individuals across known space. All of them could potentially be saved." 37 million lives. The number was too vast to truly comprehend, yet it gave a purpose to her suffering that had been lacking before. If her pain could prevent others from experiencing the same fate, perhaps there was meaning to be found in it. "Do it," she whispered. "Whatever happens, it's better than giving up." Malik nodded solemnly. "I will begin preparations immediately. Rest now, Elena Bright. Conserve your strength for the battle ahead." As the examination pod's sedation protocol activated, Elena drifted toward unconsciousness. The last thing she saw was Draco's massive head hovering protectively nearby, those intelligent amber eyes, watching over her, with what almost seemed like tenderness. Her last coherent thought before darkness claimed her was that at the very least her story would not end in that sterile hospital room. Whatever happened next, it would be on her terms. At Thien Tam Hospital, chaos reigned. The security breach had triggered emergency protocols throughout the orbital station, with force fields sealing off damaged sections and repair drones swarming to address the structural integrity issues. In the administrative center, hospital officials gathered around holographic displays, showing the Dragon's path of destruction through the facility. Dr. Harlan stood slightly apart from his colleagues, still trying to process what he had witnessed. His hands trembled slightly as he replayed the security footage, watching again as the massive creature burst through the ceiling, engaged with security personnel, and then disappeared with Elena Bright. "We've lost track of them," the head of security announced, frustration evident in his voice. "Whatever that thing was, it's outside our sensor range now." The hospital administrator, a stern woman named Dr. Phillips, turned her attention to Dr. Harlan. "You were in the room when this event occurred. What exactly did you witness?" Dr. Harlan hesitated. How could he explain what he'd seen without sounding delusional? "It appeared to be a large reptilian entity," he said carefully. "It displayed signs of advanced intelligence and communication capabilities. It specifically targeted Elena Bright's room and deliberately prevented the scheduled euthanasia procedure." "A reptilian entity," Dr. Phillips repeated skeptically. "You mean like a dragon? Dr. Harlan, please be serious. We are dealing with what is clearly an alien abduction of a terminal patient." "I'm reporting what I observed," Dr. Harlan insisted. "And yes, its appearance was consistent with the mythological description of a dragon. But more importantly, it seemed to know something about Elena's condition that we don't." He brought up the medical readouts that had appeared moments before the abduction. "These cellular anomalies, I've never seen anything like them. The entity claimed that Elena's body was developing some kind of response to the Hong-Tin radiation." Dr. Phillips frowned. "That's impossible. We've studied thousands of cases. Once crystallization reaches advanced stages, reversal is not possible. Perhaps our understanding is incomplete." Dr. Harlan suggested, surprising himself with his willingness to challenge established medical doctrine. Something about witnessing the impossible had shaken loose his rigid adherence to known science. "The entity mentioned someone who has studied the radiation for centuries." "Centuries?" Dr. Phillips scoffed. "Now you're being ridiculous. No human researcher has studied this condition for more than 50 years. "It didn't specify that this researcher was human," Dr. Harlan replied quietly. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the gathering. The head of security cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We've notified the Interplanetary Defense Force," he announced. "They're dispatching vessels to search for the abductee. The patient's family has also been informed of the situation." Dr. Harlan winced at the thought of Elena's parents. They had barely begun processing their daughter's scheduled death, and now they were faced with something even more incomprehensible. "What do we tell them?" he asked. "That their daughter was taken by a dragon?" "We tell them there was a security incident involving an unidentified entity," Dr. Phillips said firmly. "That their daughter's status is unknown, but that authorities are pursuing all leads. We do not speculate, and we certainly do not mention dragons." As the meeting continued, Dr. Harlan found his attention drifting back to the medical anomalies he'd witnessed. In all his years of practice, he'd never seen a Hong-Tin radiation patient display cellular activity like Elena's. What if the dragon was right? What if they had been about to euthanize someone who carried within her the key to a cure? The thought was professionally devastating. As a physician, his primary oath was to do no harm, yet in following established protocols, he might have been about to eliminate humanity's best hope against a devastating disease. He made a decision then, one that would likely end his medical career, but that his conscience demanded. While the others continued discussing security measures and public relations strategies, he discreetly copied Elena's medical data to his personal device. If, when she was found, he wanted to be certain that any potential cure wouldn't be overlooked again in favor of procedural efficiency. The hospital's AI voice interrupted his thoughts, announcing, "Attention all personnel. Interplanetary Defense Force vessels have entered orbit and are beginning search operations. All staff are reminded that today's events are classified under Security Protocol Delta 9. Unauthorized discussion with external parties is strictly prohibited. Dr. Harlan slipped the data device into his pocket. Some rules he was learning were meant to be broken. Meanwhile, aboard Malik Zell's ship, preparations for Elena's experimental treatment were underway. The central laboratory had transformed with equipment, rising from previously hidden compartments, and holographic interfaces, blinking to life around a central treatment chamber. Malik moved with practiced efficiency, his elongated fingers manipulating controls and adjusting parameters as Draco watched from nearby his massive form, somehow managing to avoid disturbing the delicate equipment, despite the confined space. "The nanite solution is ready," Malik announced, holding up a container of luminescent blue liquid. "I've calibrated it specifically to Elena's genetic profile. If my calculations are correct, it should catalyze her natural immune response and accelerate the process exponentially." "And if your calculations are incorrect?" Draco rumbled, concern evident in his voice. Malik's silver eyes clouded briefly. "Then we may hasten her death rather than prevent it. But without intervention, her fate is certain. The crystallization has reached her cardiopulmonary system. She has hours at most." As if to confirm his assessment, alarms began chiming from the examination pod where Elena lay. Her vitals were dropping rapidly, the crystallization process accelerating as it reached critical mass in her major organs. "We must act now," Malik said, moving quickly to the pod. "Help me transfer her to the treatment chamber." Draco gently lifted Elena's unconscious form, her body seeming impossibly fragile against his massive claws. He placed her in the transparent chamber at the center of the laboratory, where she floated, suspended in a gravity field. Malik inserted the container of nanite solution into a receptacle on the chamber's exterior. "I will administer the nanites intravenously," he explained, manipulating controls to extend a mechanical arm with a needle toward Elena's arm. Once introduced to her bloodstream, they will seek out the crystallization sites and attempt to enhance her body's natural resistance response. The needle found its mark, and the blue liquid began flowing into Elena's veins. Almost immediately, her body arched in pain, a silent scream forming on her lips, though she remained unconscious. "Is this supposed to happen?" Draco demanded, moving closer to the chamber wings, unfurling slightly in agitation. "The process is painful," Malik acknowledged grimly. "The nanites are essentially initiating a war within her body cell by cell. Pain is unavoidable." On the holographic displays surrounding the chamber, magnified views of Elena's bloodstream appeared. The nanites, visible as tiny blue lights, were attacking the red crystalline structures, creating microscopic explosions wherever they made contact. In some areas, healthy cells began to glow with the same blue light, joining the fight against the crystallization. "It's working!" Malik breathed his scientific detachment, momentarily overcome by awe. "Her cells are responding even more powerfully than I anticipated. The nanites are successfully templating the immune response and replicating it throughout her system." Elena's body continued to convulse within the chamber, sweat beading on her forehead as the battle raged inside her. The crystallization patterns on the displays were beginning to recede in some areas, particularly around her heart, but the process was far from complete. "How long will this take?" Draco asked, his usual commanding tone softened with concern. "Hours at minimum," Malik replied, adjusting parameters on the control panel. "Possibly days for full reversal. But the critical phase is now. If she survives the next 3 hours, her chances improve dramatically." As they watched the displays monitoring Elena's tenuous progress, the ship's security system suddenly blared a warning. Malik's head snapped up, his silver eyes widening. "We've been detected," he said, pulling up external sensor readings. "Interplanetary Defense Force vessels are approaching our position. They must have followed your energy signature, Draco." The dragon's scales rippled with tension. "Can they penetrate your cloaking technology?" "Not typically, but your passage through their security perimeter likely left a trace they could follow." And once they're close enough, their advanced sensors will detect the energy emissions from the treatment chamber. Malik's fingers flew over the controls, initiating evasive maneuvers. We cannot move her now. Interrupting the treatment at this stage would kill her instantly. Then we must confront them, Draco said, moving toward the docking bay. I will draw them away from the ship. Malik shook his head vehemently. Too risky. Their weapons could seriously injure even you, old friend. And Elena needs both of us if she is to survive this ordeal. Before they could decide on a course of action, a new alert sounded. The security camera at the ship's primary airlock showed a small shuttle docking without authorization, a maneuver that should have been impossible, given the ship's defensive systems. Someone has overridden our security protocols, Malik said, disbelief evident in his voice. But that would require intimate knowledge of my ship's systems. The airlock cycled open, and a single figure stepped through, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. Malik zoomed in on the security feed, then made a sound of surprise. It's the physician from the hospital, he said. Dr. Harlan. Indeed, Dr. Harlan stood alone in the airlock chamber, still wearing his hospital uniform, a small data device clutched in one hand. His expression showed a combination of fear and determination. Let me speak with him, Draco rumbled, already moving toward the airlock. Malik hesitated, then nodded. Be careful, he may not be alone. Dr. Harlan flinched visibly when the inner airlock door slid open to reveal Draco's massive form filling the corridor before him. To his credit, he held his ground, though his knuckles whitened around the data device he was clutching. You are either very brave or very foolish to come here alone, Draco observed, lowering his head to look the physician directly in the eyes. Perhaps both, Dr. Harlan admitted, his voice steadier than he felt. I came to help Elena. The same Elena you were prepared to euthanize mere hours ago. Draco's voice carried a dangerous edge. Dr. Harlan swallowed hard, but met the dragon's gaze. I was following established medical protocols based on the information available to me. But after what I witnessed in her room, the cellular anomalies, your claims about her condition, I began to question those protocols. He held up the data device. I brought her complete medical history, including genetic sequencing data, that might help with whatever treatment you're attempting. And I came to warn you that the Interplanetary Defense Force has deployed a full tactical squadron. They'll be within firing range in less than 20 minutes. Draco's amber eyes narrowed, studying the human before him. After a moment of tense silence, he stepped back. Follow me. But know that if your intentions prove false, my fire burns hot enough to melt bone. Understood, Dr. Harlan said, simply falling into step behind the dragon. They made their way to the central laboratory, where Malik was still monitoring Elena's treatment. The alien researcher looked up as they entered, his silver eyes assessing Dr. Harlan with cautious curiosity. You have taken a significant risk coming here, Malik observed. Your professional reputation, possibly your freedom, both are now in jeopardy. Dr. Harlan glanced around the laboratory, momentarily awestruck by the advanced technology surrounding him. His gaze settled on Elena, floating in the treatment chamber, blue light coursing visibly through her veins. Some risks are worth taking, he said quietly. What you're doing here, is it working? Can you cure her? Malik gestured toward the holographic displays. See for yourself. The nanite therapy is accelerating her body's natural immune response to the Hong-Tin radiation. In some areas, the crystallization has already begun to reverse. Dr. Harlan stepped closer to the displays, his medical training allowing him to interpret the complex data streams. What he saw made his breath catch. This is remarkable. If this works, it could revolutionize how we treat Hong-Tin radiation. That is precisely the point, Malik said. Elena's genetic anomaly combined with my nanite technology could save millions of lives across known space. But only if she survives the treatment, and only if we are not interrupted by your military forces. Dr. Harlan turned to face them both, decision made. Tell me what you need me to do. You could begin by explaining to us why we should trust you, Draco suggested, smoke curling from his nostrils. You were part of the system that failed her. Yes, I was. Dr. Harlan acknowledged shame evident in his voice. I've spent my career following protocols believing in the system. Today, that system was prepared to end the life of a 17-year-old girl because our instruments couldn't detect what yours can. Because our procedures dictated that her life was no longer viable. He looked again at Elena in the treatment chamber. I became a doctor to save lives, not to end them for the sake of efficiency. If there's even a chance this treatment could work, could save not just Elena, but millions of others, then I have a moral obligation to help. Malik and Draco exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Malik nodded. Very well, he said. The Defense Force vessels, how will they approach? Standard containment formation, Dr. Harlan replied. 3 cruisers arranged in triangular formation to prevent escape with shuttle teams prepared for boarding action. Their primary objective will be retrieval of Elena Bright, with secondary objectives to capture unknown entities for questioning. They will not hesitate to use force, Draco stated. No, they won't, Dr. Harlan confirmed, especially against what they perceive as alien threats. Malik turned back to the treatment chamber controls. Elena cannot be moved, and the treatment cannot be interrupted. If the Defense Force attacks this vessel, the energy disruption alone could destabilize the nanite programming, likely killing her and destroying any chance of developing a cure. Then we must convince them to stand down, Dr. Harlan suggested. I still have clearance to communicate with the hospital administration. If I could show them what's happening here, provide evidence that this treatment is working, they might call off the military response. You believe they would listen to reason? Draco's tone made clear his skepticism. Not to reason alone, Dr. Harlan admitted. But to evidence, perhaps. Hospitals and medical facilities are ultimately governed by one principle, the preservation of life. If we can demonstrate that Elena's life is not only being preserved, but that her treatment could save countless others, they would be bound by their own ethical codes to allow it to continue. Malik considered this, his elongated fingers, tapping thoughtfully against the control panel. It is a risk. Revealing my presence, my technology, I have remained hidden from your authorities for good reasons. Which are, Dr. Harlan prompted. My species has observed humanity for centuries, Malik explained. We have witnessed your tendency to weaponize new technologies to exploit scientific discoveries for military advantage rather than common benefit. The nanite technology I am using to treat Elena could easily be repurposed for destruction on a massive scale. Dr. Harlan couldn't deny the truth in this assessment. Humanity's history was riddled with examples of beneficial discoveries being twisted toward warfare. Yet in this moment, with Elena's life hanging in the balance and millions of other lives potentially at stake, the risk seemed necessary. I understand your concerns, he said. But right now, we have limited options. The Defense Force will be in firing position soon. If we don't act, Elena dies, your ship may be destroyed, and any hope of a cure dies with her. The ship's security system issued another warning more urgent than the last. The Defense Force vessels had accelerated, cutting their arrival time in half. Malik made his decision. We will attempt your plan. Establish communication with your hospital authorities. Show them what we are doing here. But prepare yourself, Dr. Harlan, even if they agree to allow the treatment to continue your career, as you know it is likely over. Dr. Harlan gave a small, sad smile. I made peace with that possibility the moment I stole Elena's medical data and followed you here. As he activated his communication device linking back to Thien Hospital, he felt an odd sense of liberation. For years, he had allowed protocols and procedures to dictate his actions, even when they conflicted with his deepest instincts as a healer. Now, in this strange laboratory aboard an alien ship facing a dragon and an ancient xenobiologist, he was finally acting in accordance with the oath he had taken when he first became a physician. First, do no harm. The connection established, and Dr. Phillips' stern face appeared on the holographic display. Her expression transformed from irritation to shock as she took in the scene behind Dr. Harlan. "Dr. Harlan, what is the meaning of this? Where are you? The Defense Force reported your shuttle leaving the orbital station without authorization." "Dr. Phillips," he replied, his voice calm and professional, despite the extraordinary circumstances. "I need you to listen carefully. I am aboard a research vessel with Elena Bright. She is receiving treatment for her Hong-10 radiation, and it's working. I'm sending you the live cellular readings now." He transmitted the data from Malik's displays, showing the progressive reversal of the crystallization in Elena's system. Dr. Phillips's eyes widened as she reviewed the information. How is this possible? "According to these readings, the crystallization is receding. That's never been documented in late-stage cases. It's happening because Elena has a rare genetic anomaly," Dr. Harlan explained. "One that allows her cells to develop an immune response to the radiation given the right catalyst. The treatment she's receiving is accelerating and enhancing that natural response." Dr. Phillips's scientific curiosity was visibly battling with her administrative concerns. "Who is administering this experimental treatment? It hasn't been approved by any regulatory body I'm aware of." Dr. Harlan stepped aside, allowing Malik to approach the display. The alien researcher inclined his head in greeting. "I am Malik Zell, xenobiologist and cellular researcher. I have studied the Hong-10 radiation for over 3 centuries across multiple affected worlds. The treatment Elena is receiving is based on decades of research into similar genetic anomalies among various species." Dr. Phillips stared momentarily speechless at the sight of the obviously non-human researcher. She recovered quickly, her training reasserting itself. "And the creature that abducted Elena from our facility?" Draco moved into view, his massive head filling a significant portion of the display. "I am Draco," he stated simply. "I prevented an unnecessary death and brought Elena to someone who could save her." Dr. Phillips visibly struggled to maintain her composure. "This is unprecedented. I need to consult with the hospital's ethics committee and regulatory authorities. And the Defense Force is already en route to your position with orders to retrieve Elena Bright." "There's no time for committees," Dr. Harlan insisted. "Elena's treatment is at a critical stage. Any interruption could be fatal. And you've seen the data. This treatment isn't just saving her life. It could lead to a cure for millions of Hong-10 radiation patients throughout known space." He leaned closer to the display, his expression intense. "Dr. Phillips, I know I've violated protocols. I know there will be consequences for my actions. But as physicians, our first duty is to our patients. Elena Bright was scheduled to die today because our instruments couldn't detect what was happening in her cells. Are you willing to let that happen now that you know the truth?" Dr. Phillips was silent for a long moment, the conflict evident on her face. Finally, she sighed. "I'll contact the Defense Force commander and request that they stand down pending further investigation. But I want continuous monitoring of Elena's condition, and I expect full documentation of this treatment protocol, Dr. Harlan." "You'll have it," he promised. "Thank you, Dr. Phillips." The communication ended, and Dr. Harlan turned to Malik and Draco. "That buys us some time, but not much. The Defense Force commander may not agree to stand down without direct orders from higher authorities. Then we must ensure Elena's treatment progresses as quickly as possible," Malik said, returning to the control panel. "If we can demonstrate clear, irrefutable improvement in her condition, even the most skeptical authorities would hesitate to intervene." Draco moved closer to the treatment chamber, his amber eyes fixed on Elena. "She is fighting bravely," he observed. "Her spirit is strong even as her body struggles." Indeed, though Elena remained unconscious, the displays showed her cellular activity, increasing the blue glow of the nanite-enhanced immune response, spreading throughout her system. In some areas, healthy tissue was already beginning to regenerate, where crystallization had receded. "The next few hours will be crucial," Malik said, adjusting treatment parameters. "The nanites are now programmed with the template of her immune response. They're replicating it throughout her body, but the process taxes her already weakened system. Dr. Harlan studied the displays his medical training, allowing him to interpret what he was seeing. Her vital organs are stabilizing, he noted, with cautious optimism. Cardiac crystallization has reduced by nearly 30% already. Yes, the treatment is targeting essential systems first, Malik confirmed. But the battle is far from won. The Hongtin radiation has affected her at the DNA level. Complete reversal will require cellular regeneration throughout her body. As they monitored Elena's progress, the ship's sensors detected the arrival of the Defense Force vessels. They assumed a containment formation as Dr. Harlan had predicted, but maintained their distance rather than moving immediately to boarding positions. It seems Dr. Phillips was successful in her intervention, Dr. Harlan observed with relief. They're holding position for now. For now, Draco repeated grimly. But humans are not known for their patience in such matters. Hours passed intense vigilance with Malik continuously adjusting the nanite programming to respond to changes in Elena's condition. Dr. Harlan assisted where he could, his medical knowledge proving valuable in monitoring her vital signs and suggesting modifications to the treatment protocol. Draco remained a constant guardian, alternating between watching over Elena and maintaining vigil at the ship's sensors, wary of any movement from the Defense Force vessels still surrounding them. It was during the 6th hour of treatment that Elena's eyes fluttered open for the first time. Her gaze unfocused, at first gradually sharpened as she became aware of her surroundings. She saw Malik working at the control panel, Dr. Harlan studying a holographic display of what appeared to be her lung tissue, and Draco's massive form standing protectively nearby. "Am I dreaming?" she whispered, her voice weak, but clearer than it had been in months. All three turned toward her, varying expressions of surprise and relief on their faces. "Elena," Malik said, moving quickly to the treatment chamber. "You're awake. This is excellent progress. How do you feel?" She considered the question, taking stock of her body's sensations. "Like I've been hit by a transport shuttle," she admitted, with a weak smile. "But different. The glass feeling in my lungs, it's less sharp." "The crystallization is receding," Dr. Harlan explained, stepping closer. "The treatment is working, Elena. Your cellular structure is actually regenerating." Elena's gaze shifted to him, recognition dawning. "Dr. Harlan, you're here, but you were going to—" "Things have changed," he said gently. "What we discovered about your condition, it challenges everything we thought we knew about Hongtin radiation. Your body is developing an immune response that could save not just your life, but potentially millions of others." Elena's eyes widened, then moved to Draco. "You knew this would happen. That's why you came for me." The dragon inclined his massive head. "I sensed the potential within you. It is rare, but not unique. Throughout the cosmos, life finds ways to adapt to survive. Your adaptation is particularly significant. The nanite treatment is enhancing your natural immune response," Malik added, "accelerating a process that would have occurred too slowly to save you under normal circumstances. But the fundamental ability was always within you, Elena." She absorbed this information slowly, her mind still foggy from the treatment and months of illness. "So I'm not dying anymore." "Your condition is improving," Dr. Harlan said cautiously. "The treatment is working better than we dared hope, but you're not out of danger yet. Complete cellular regeneration will take time." Elena nodded, then winced as a wave of pain passed through her. "It hurts," she gasped. "I can adjust the pain management protocols," Malik offered, reaching for the controls. "No," Elena said, surprising them all. "I want to feel it. The pain means I'm alive, fighting back. After months of just fading away, this feels different. This feels like winning." Draco made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "You have a warrior's spirit, Elena Bright. It serves you well in this battle." She managed a small smile before another thought occurred to her. "My parents do. They know what's happening." Dr. Harlan hesitated. "They've been informed that you were removed from the hospital before the euthanasia procedure could take place. They know you're receiving alternative treatment, but not the specifics. The situation has been rather chaotic. They must be terrified, Elena said, distress evident in her voice despite her weakness. After saying goodbye, after making peace with losing me, now this uncertainty. We can establish communication with them, Malik suggested. Once the Defense Force situation is resolved, they could even be brought here to see you. Elena nodded gratefully. I'd like that. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the three unlikely allies who had come together to save her life. Thank you, all of you, for believing I was worth saving. Every life is worth saving, Dr. Harlan said quietly. Sometimes we forget that in our adherence to protocols and statistics. Elena's eyes began to drift closed, the brief period of consciousness taxing her limited strength. Don't let them stop you, she murmured, as sleep reclaimed her. Too many people need this cure. As she slipped back into unconsciousness, Malik checked her vital signs and nodded with satisfaction. Her neural activity is normalizing. Consciousness, even briefly, is an excellent sign. The treatment is progressing even faster than I anticipated. We should update Dr. Phillips, Dr. Harlan suggested. Elena's awakening and coherent communication will strengthen our case for continuing the treatment without interference. Before he could establish communication, however, the ship's security system issued a new alert. One of the Defense Force vessels was breaking formation, moving closer to their position. They're preparing a boarding action, Draco growled, moving toward the docking bay. I will meet them. No, Dr. Harlan said firmly. That would only escalate the situation. Let me speak with them first. They might be more receptive to a human physician than to a dragon, regardless of how reasonable your position might be. Draco hesitated, then inclined his head in acknowledgement of the logic. Very well, but I will be nearby should diplomacy fail. Dr. Harlan established communication with the approaching vessel, his hospital credentials still providing access to the secure channel. The stern face of a Defense Force commander appeared on the display. This is Commander Reeves of the Interplanetary Defense Force. We are preparing to board your vessel to retrieve the abducted patient, Elena Bright. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Commander Reeves, Dr. Harlan replied, keeping his voice calm and professional. I am Dr. James Harlan, Chief Physician for Elena Bright at Thien Hospital. I'm transmitting medical data that demonstrates the patient is currently receiving life-saving treatment that cannot be interrupted without serious risk to her life. He sent the updated readings showing Elena's improving condition and the remarkable reversal of crystallization in her tissues. The commander studied the data, his expression skeptical. These readings could be falsified, Dr. Harlan. And regardless, you've violated numerous regulations by participating in an unauthorized experimental treatment. Step aside and allow our boarding team to assess the situation directly. Dr. Harlan felt a surge of frustration. Commander Elena Bright was scheduled for euthanasia today because our conventional medical technology could not detect or treat her condition effectively. The treatment she is now receiving is demonstrably reversing a disease that has been considered 100% fatal in its advanced stages. This represents a potential breakthrough that could save millions of lives. Surely that warrants at least a pause in your military action. The commander's expression remained unmoved. My orders are clear, Doctor. The patient will be retrieved and returned to proper medical facilities. Any alien technology or entities involved will be secured for further investigation. You have 5 minutes to prepare for our arrival. The communication terminated abruptly. Dr. Harlan turned to Malik and Draco, his expression grim. They're coming and they won't be persuaded to stand down. We need another approach. Malik's silver eyes narrowed in thought. Perhaps a more direct demonstration is required. If they could see Elena's condition for themselves, witness the improvement. They would still attempt to remove her, Draco pointed out. Humans often fear what they do not understand, and your technology, Malik, is far beyond their comprehension. Dr. Harlan paced the laboratory, mind racing. A solution began to form, risky, potentially career-ending, but possibly their only option. The Defense Force answers to the Interplanetary Health Organization, he said slowly. They're the ultimate authority in matters involving medical emergencies. If we could bypass Commander Reeves and appeal directly to the IHO director. Can you establish such communication? Malik asked. Not directly, no. But Dr. Harlan's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. The hospital's AI system has IHO override protocols for situations involving promising experimental treatments. Dr. Phillips could activate those protocols if she were convinced of the treatment's efficacy. He quickly re-established communication with the Intom Hospital Relief, washing over him, when Dr. Phillips's face appeared on the display. She looked tense, clearly aware of the Defense Force's actions. Dr. Harlan, the situation has escalated beyond my control. The Defense Force is proceeding with retrieval operations despite my objections. Dr. Phillips Elena regained consciousness, he said urgently. She was coherent, communicative. The treatment is working even better than we hoped. I'm sending you the latest readings now. As she reviewed the data, her expression shifted from skepticism to cautious wonder. This is remarkable. The crystallization has receded by nearly 40% in just hours. This shouldn't be possible. But it is happening, Dr. Harlan insisted. And it will be tragically interrupted if the Defense Force removes her now. You know the protocols for promising experimental treatments, Dr. Phillips. The Lazarus exception. The Lazarus exception was a rarely invoked protocol that allowed for continued experimental treatment when a patient showed unexpected recovery from a previously terminal condition. It required the endorsement of at least 2 physicians of director-level authority and could temporarily override even military directives in medical matters. Dr. Phillips hesitated, the weight of the decision evident in her expression. The Lazarus exception has only been invoked 3 times in the past 50 years, Dr. Harlan. The documentation requirements alone are extensive, and that's assuming I could find another director willing to support such an unprecedented case. Dr. Phillips, he said, his voice dropping to an intensity he rarely displayed. You became a physician for the same reason I did, to save lives. Right now, we have the opportunity to save not just Elena Bright, but potentially millions of others suffering from Hongtin radiation. Are bureaucratic concerns really worth sacrificing that potential? She was silent for a long moment, then squared her shoulders. Send me everything you have on this treatment protocol. Every reading, every observation, every theoretical framework. I'll present it to Dr. Katsura in research. If anyone would support invoking the exception, it would be him. Thank you, Dr. Harlan said with genuine gratitude. Time is critical. The Defense Force boarding team will be here in minutes. I'll move as quickly as possible, she promised, before ending the communication. Dr. Harlan turned back to Malik and Draco. It's a long shot, but it might buy us the time we need. The Lazarus exception would at least force a formal medical evaluation before any attempt to remove Elena. And if it fails, Draco asked, smoke curling from his nostrils. Dr. Harlan met the dragon's gaze steadily. Then we do whatever is necessary to protect Elena and this treatment. I've already crossed lines I never thought I would. I won't back down now. Malik nodded approvingly. Your species shows remarkable adaptability when pushed beyond comfortable boundaries, Dr. Harlan. It is one of your better qualities. The minutes ticked by in tense silence, the ship's sensors tracking the Defense Force vessel's approach. They were less than 2 minutes from docking when Dr. Phillips's face reappeared on the communication display, accompanied by an elderly Japanese man with kind eyes behind old-fashioned spectacles. Dr. Harlan, this is Dr. Katsura, Director of Advanced Research. I've shared the data with him, and he's agreed to support invoking the Lazarus exception. Dr. Katsura nodded gravely. The cellular regeneration patterns are unlike anything I've seen in 30 years of studying Hongtin radiation. This treatment warrants further investigation, under controlled observation, not military intervention. Relief washed over Dr. Harlan. Thank you both. What happens next? I've already transmitted the exception documentation to Commander Reeves, Dr. Phillips explained. His orders now are to establish an observation perimeter, but to take no action that might interrupt the treatment. A medical evaluation team will be dispatched instead of a military boarding party. This evaluation team? Draco rumbled suspiciously. What authority will they have? They will observe and document, Dr. Katsura said. They cannot remove Elena without clear evidence that the treatment is failing or causing harm. And given the readings we've seen, that seems highly unlikely. The tension in the laboratory eased slightly as the Defense Force vessel halted its approach, taking up a new position at a respectful distance. Commander Reeves's face appeared briefly on a secondary display, his expression clearly displeased, but resigned to following the new orders. The medical evaluation team will arrive within the hour, Dr. Phillips informed them. I suggest you prepare your documentation and be ready to explain this treatment protocol in terms our researchers can understand. We will be ready, Malik assured her. And I believe by then we will have even more promising results to share. As the communication ended, Dr. Harlan slumped slightly, the adrenaline that had been sustaining him beginning to ebb. That was closer than I'd like to admit. You showed courage worthy of a dragon's respect, Draco said, surprising Dr. Harlan with what appeared to be a compliment. Few humans would risk so much for principles. It wasn't just principles, Dr. Harlan admitted, glancing toward Elena in the treatment chamber. It was her, seeing her scheduled for euthanasia this morning, watching as we prepared to end her life because our science said there was no hope. And then discovering we were wrong. It forces a kind of reckoning. Malik nodded thoughtfully. Such reckonings are valuable, though often painful. They push scientific understanding forward, challenge comfortable assumptions. And save lives, Dr. Harlan added quietly. Let's make sure Elena's is one of them. We still have work to do before the evaluation team arrives. Over the next hour, they prepared comprehensive documentation of the treatment protocol and Elena's remarkable progress. Malik explained the theoretical framework behind the nanite therapy in terms that human medical researchers could understand, while Dr. Harlan organized Elena's medical history to highlight the subtle signs of her genetic anomaly that had been overlooked by conventional diagnostics. Draco, meanwhile, maintained a protective vigil over Elena, whose vital signs continued to improve steadily. The blue glow beneath her skin had spread throughout her body, the nanites working tirelessly to enhance her natural immune response and reverse the crystallization. When the medical evaluation team arrived, they were understandably shocked by the sight of Malik and Draco. But to their credit, the team of 3 specialized physicians quickly focused on the medical marvel before them, rather than the extraordinary entities facilitating it. The cellular regeneration is unprecedented, the lead evaluator admitted, after reviewing the documentation and conducting her own scans. We've never seen Hongtin crystallization reverse once it reached advanced stages. That's because your medical technology hasn't been looking for the right markers, Malik explained patiently. A small percentage of humans carry a genetic variation that allows for an adaptive immune response to the radiation. But the response develops too slowly to save them without intervention. And your nanite technology accelerates this natural process. Another evaluator observed, studying the holographic displays with evident fascination. The implications for treatment are enormous. Not just treatment, Dr. Harlan added. Prevention. If we can synthesize the immune response Elena's cells are producing, we could potentially develop a vaccine against Hongtin radiation. The evaluation team exchanged glances, the magnitude of this possibility sinking in. Hongtin radiation had claimed millions of lives across colonized space in the past century alone. A vaccine could change everything. We'll need to establish a formal research protocol, the lead evaluator said. Ethical approvals, clinical trial frameworks. All in good time, Dr. Harlan interrupted gently. First, we need to ensure Elena survives this treatment and makes a full recovery. She's not just a patient. She's a 17-year-old girl who was prepared to die this morning. Her well-being must remain our priority. The evaluator nodded, properly chastened. Of course. Our preliminary assessment is that the Lazarus exception is justified in this case. We'll recommend continued treatment under observation, with no interference from Defense Force personnel. As the evaluation team prepared their official report, Elena stirred once more in the treatment chamber. Her eyes opened clearer this time, more focused. She took in the scene around her, the additional medical personnel, the intense discussion, the protective stance Draco maintained nearby. "Did I miss something important?" she asked, her voice stronger than before. Dr. Harlan moved to her side, smiling genuinely for what felt like the first time in years. "Just some bureaucratic wrangling. How are you feeling?" Elena took a deep breath, then another surprise registering on her face. "I can breathe," she said wonderingly. "Without pain. For the first time in months, breathing doesn't hurt. The crystallization in your lungs has receded by nearly 60%, Malik informed her, checking the latest readings. "Your body is healing itself, Elena, with a little help from our nanite friends." She looked down at her arms where the blue glow beneath her skin was clearly visible. "It's beautiful in a strange way," she observed. "Like stars under my skin." "Quite poetic for someone who was at death's door this morning," Dr. Harlan remarked, unable to keep a note of emotion from his voice. Elena met his gaze. "You were going to help me die today. Now you're helping me live. That's quite a change of heart, Dr. Harlan." "Not a change of heart," he corrected gently. "A correction of understanding. I've always wanted what was best for my patients. Today, I learned that sometimes what's best isn't found in our protocols or procedures." She nodded, then looked toward the evaluation team who were watching this exchange with professional interest. "Are they here to take me back to the hospital?" "No," Dr. Harlan assured her. "They're here to observe your treatment and document your progress. You'll stay here until the treatment is complete." Relief washed over her features. "Good. I don't think I could bear going back to that white room." She glanced toward Draco, a small smile forming. "Besides, I have questions for my rescuer, like why a dragon decided to crash through a hospital ceiling for someone he'd never met." Draco moved closer, his massive head lowering to her level. "You remind me of someone I knew long ago," he said, his voice softer than Dr. Harlan had heard it before. "Someone who also carried starlight beneath her skin." The evaluation team departed, after completing their assessment, promising to return the following day for continued observation. The Defense Force vessels maintained their perimeter, but no longer posed an immediate threat. As night cycle began aboard Malik's ship, a sense of cautious optimism pervaded the laboratory. Elena's condition continued to improve hour by hour. The crystallization in her major organs had receded by nearly 70%, and healthy tissue was regenerating at an accelerated rate. She drifted in and out of consciousness, each period of wakefulness longer and more coherent than the last. During one such period, she asked the question that had been forming in her mind since her first awakening. "What happens after I'm healed? What happens to all the other people with Hongtin radiation?" Malik, who had been working tirelessly at the control panel, paused to consider her question. "The nanite therapy can be adapted for other patients with similar genetic profiles to yours. For those without the natural immunity factors, we can potentially synthesize the antibodies your body is producing. So others won't have to go through what I did." The hope in her voice was palpable. "That is the goal," Malik confirmed. "Your experience, while painful, may save millions of others from a similar fate." Elena was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. "My parents are agricultural engineers," she said finally. "They develop plants that can grow in hostile environments, feed people who would otherwise starve. I always wanted to do something that mattered like that, something that helped people." "It seems you have found your calling earlier than expected," Draco observed. She smiled weakly. "Not exactly how I planned to make my mark on the universe, but I'll take it." Dr. Harlan, who had been monitoring her vital signs, added, "Once you've recovered, there will be much work to be done. Research, testing, development of treatment protocols. Your contribution will extend far beyond just being the first patient." I want to be involved, Elena said firmly. Not just as a test subject or a donor. I want to understand everything about this condition, about the cure. I want to help others the way you've helped me. A noble aspiration, Malik said approvingly, and one I would be pleased to support. There is much I could teach you about cellular biology and nanite technology. As they discussed possibilities for the future, a communication alert sounded. Dr. Phillips appeared on the display, her expression a mix of concern and relief. Elena's parents have been informed of the developments, she reported. They're requesting permission to see her. Elena's face lit up. Yes, please, I want to see them. Dr. Harlan glanced at Malik, who nodded. They can be brought here, the alien researcher confirmed. The treatment is stabilized enough that brief visitors will not pose a risk. Arrangements were made, and within hours, Elena's parents arrived aboard a medical shuttle. They entered the laboratory cautiously, clearly overwhelmed by the alien technology, and even more so by the presence of Draco and Malik. But their focus quickly narrowed to their daughter, floating in the treatment chamber alive and awake when they had thought her lost forever. Elena! Her mother whispered, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her hands against the transparent wall of the chamber. Oh, my baby! Mom, Dad, Elena replied, her own eyes filling with tears. I'm okay, I'm getting better. Her father, a tall man with Elena's same auburn hair, seemed unable to speak, his expression, a complex mix of disbelief, hope, and lingering fear. He simply nodded, one hand supporting his wife, the other pressed against the chamber alongside hers. The treatment is working, Dr. Harlan explained gently. The crystallization is receding. Her body is healing itself with the help of some revolutionary technology. How? Elena's father finally managed. We were told there was no hope, no treatment left to try. We discovered that Elena has a rare genetic variation. Dr. Harlan began, then glanced at Malik silently, asking him to continue the explanation. Malik stepped forward, and to his credit, Elena's father barely flinched at the obviously non-human appearance of the researcher. Your daughter's cells contain a natural defense mechanism against the Hong-Tin radiation, Malik explained. My nanite technology simply enhances and accelerates this natural process. And him? Elena's mother asked, shakily, looking toward Draco, who had maintained a respectful distance. The report said some kind of creature took Elena from the hospital. Draco sensed what we could not, Dr. Harlan said. He knew Elena could be saved when our instruments told us otherwise. Elena smiled from within the chamber. He crashed through the ceiling just before they were going to euthanize me. Pretty dramatic rescue. Her father looked from Draco to Malik to Dr. Harlan, then back to his daughter. I don't understand any of this, he admitted. But you're alive. After we said goodbye, after we thought we'd lost you, you're alive and getting better. That's all that matters right now. In the days that followed, Elena's recovery accelerated beyond even Malik's optimistic projections. The crystallization receded completely from her major organs, and healthy tissue regeneration continued throughout her body. By the end of the week, she was able to leave the treatment chamber for short periods, though the nanite therapy continued through a portable delivery system. News of her miraculous recovery spread rapidly through medical channels then to the general public. Media outlets across colonized space ran sensationalized stories. Dragon saves, girl from Euthanasia, truth or hoax, became a trending topic on information networks. Hospital administrators and government officials scrambled to control the narrative, but the facts, however incredible, could not be contained. Dr. Harlan, as predicted, faced professional consequences for his actions. His medical license was temporarily suspended pending review, and he was barred from returning to Thien Tam Hospital. Yet he found himself strangely unbothered by these developments. He had remembered what it meant to be a healer, to put life above procedure. No administrative punishment could outweigh that rediscovery. Malik's ship remained in orbit around Gaia's moon now, under the protection of a scientific research designation rather than military surveillance. Researchers from across the system arrived to study the nanite therapy and its applications for Hongtin radiation treatment with Malik, sharing his knowledge more openly than he had in centuries. Draco became something of a reluctant celebrity, though he avoided direct interaction with most humans. He remained protective of Elena, often found near her, as she regained her strength and began participating in the research efforts herself. 1 month after her scheduled euthanasia, Elena stood at a viewport in Malik's ship, looking down at the blue-green surface of Gaia. Her body had fully recovered, though she continued to receive maintenance doses of the nanite therapy as a precaution. Her hair had grown back thicker than before her skin had regained its healthy color, and her eyes shone with the intensity of someone who had stared down death and emerged victorious. Dr. Harlan found her there gazing at the planet she had never visited. "Planning your first trip planetside?" he asked, joining her at the viewport. Elena smiled. "Eventually. There's too much work to do first." She turned to face him fully. "The treatment protocol is being adapted for other patients. The first clinical trials begin next week." "I know," he said. "I've been asked to oversee them despite my professional probation. Apparently being involved in a medical miracle earns some leniency, even from the strictest regulatory boards." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as clouds swirled across Gaia's atmosphere. "Do you ever wonder why Draco really came for me?" Elena asked suddenly. "He said I reminded him of someone, but I feel like there's more to the story." Dr. Harlan considered the question. "I've learned that in this universe, there are more mysteries than our science can explain. Dragon's alien researchers' miraculous cures. A month ago I would have dismissed all of it as fantasy. And now I understand that the boundaries of possibility are far wider than we imagine." He smiled at his former patient, now colleague, in the research that would save countless lives. "Whatever brought Draco to your room that day, I'm grateful for it." Elena nodded, then looked back toward the interior of the ship where Malik and a team of researchers were preparing equipment for the upcoming trials. Draco's massive form was visible in the background, his amber eyes watchful as always. "No one believed what would come next," she said softly, echoing a phrase that had been used in many of the media reports about her case. "Including me. But here we are." "Here we are indeed," Dr. Harlan agreed. "And where we go from here will change everything." Elena smiled, the blue glow of nanites still faintly visible beneath her skin when she moved in certain light. "I can't wait to find out." In the control room, Malik and Draco exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. They had seen this pattern before on other worlds with other species, the moment when a civilization stood at the threshold of a new understanding, when the impossible became merely improbable, and then eventually commonplace. For Elena Bright, for Dr. Harlan, for the millions who would be saved by the treatment developed from her unique cells, that threshold had been crossed the moment a dragon crashed through a hospital ceiling and prevented the euthanasia of a girl no one believed could be saved. The story was just beginning.